If someone had told me control could feel like care when the room turned sharp, I wouldn't have listened. The email hit at 3:02 a.m., buried between spam and overdue notices, with a subject line that read only, Vivian Marlowe. Nora stared at it for several seconds, heart pounding before she even clicked. The name was a gut punch, a murmur from a life she'd buried 5 years ago and had no plan to exhume, until now. The message was short: Nora, I need to see you. It's urgent. Please call me. A phone number followed, a Harbor City area code. Nora hovered over it, fingers shaking, then yanked her hand back like it burned. She sank into her battered couch, ringed by grated papers, cold coffee, and the sputtering glow of a cheap lamp she couldn't afford to replace. Her tiny studio smelled like lavender and overwork. The walls were thin enough to hear her neighbor arguing with her cat. This was her life now, lean, stubborn, hers. Vivian Marlowe didn't fit here. Vivian belonged to champagne penthouses and curated quiet, to heels sticking over marble and secrets sewn into couture, to that gilded, unreachable world Nora had once been allowed to glimpse, and fled the second her heart cracked under its weight. She shouldn't call. She knew that. But she did. She didn't speak when the line connected. Neither did Vivian. For 5 whole seconds, it was just breath. Familiar, heavy, dangerous. You called, Vivian said first. Her voice was deeper than Nora remembered. Slower, like honey left out in the cold. You emailed me. I didn't know if you'd respond. I didn't know if I should. I need you. Nora's heart clenched. That's not fair. I know. So why now? Can we meet? Vivian, please. That word was a weapon in her mouth. Nora didn't know why she said yes. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was that part of her that had never stopped wondering why Vivian had vanished without saying goodbye 5 years ago. Maybe it was the quiet ache that never quite left her chest when she heard the name Marlowe. They met at a rooftop bar the next night. Nora arrived early, heart pacing, hands sweating. She hadn't worn anything fancy, just a black dress that hugged her body in a way that made her feel braver than she was, and her most decent pair of heels. She regretted them immediately. The second Vivian walked in, every molecule of air shifted. She looked the same and nothing like she used to. Her dark hair was pulled back in a low, expensive twist. Her lips painted a color Nora couldn't name. And her black suit was tailored so perfectly it looked illegal. But her eyes, God, her eyes, they were still the same stormy blue that used to light up when she talked about Kafka or when Nora brought her street tacos after a night out. Hi, Vivian said, stopping 2 feet away. Hi, Nora replied, trying not to let her voice shake. They didn't hug. They didn't smile. They just stared. You look, Vivian began, then stopped. You cut your hair. You didn't. Vivian let out a breath that was almost a laugh. I wasn't sure you'd come. I'm still not sure I should have. Fair. They sat, ordered drinks, talked about the weather like strangers. Then Nora set her glass down and said, Why am I here? Vivian looked away. I need to get married. Nora blinked. You're joking. No. Is this one of those crazy rich people things? It's in the will. What? Vivian sighed, fingers lacing together. My grandfather had a clause in his will. A very old-fashioned, very controlling clause. I inherit the estate in full if I marry before my 30th birthday, which is when? 60 days from now. Jesus. Exactly. Nora stared. So, marry someone. Get a lawyer. Do what people like you do when they don't want to deal with emotions. I tried and they wanted the money or the name or something I wasn't willing to give. Nora crossed her arms and you came to me. Vivian's gaze didn't waver because you're the only person I've ever known who didn't want anything from me. I wanted you. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Vivian flinched. I know. Silence. Sharp. Icy. Nora stood. This was a mistake. Nora, you disappeared. I had to. No, you chose to. You broke my heart. And now you're here asking me to marry you. Yes. Nora froze. Say that again. I'm asking you to marry me for 60 days. For 2 years. We stay married, then divorce quietly. You get your life back. And I get my inheritance. And what do I get? Security. Enough money to never worry again. A business if you want. Anything except you. Vivian didn't answer. Nora looked at her for a long time. Then said, I need to think, of course, and if I say no, then I lose everything. And if I say yes, Vivian's voice was barely a whisper. Then we both do. Nora walked away. Her heart wasn't ready. But something had cracked open. And deep down, even through the ache, a tiny voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, she was about to get the one thing she'd wanted all along, a second chance. Nora didn't sleep that night. She lay on her mattress with the city humming outside her window, and the ghost of Vivian Marlowe sitting at the edge of her thoughts like a weight she couldn't shake. It had been 5 years. 5 years without a message, a call, a single explanation for the way their friendship had evaporated like it never mattered. And now she shows up composed, radiant, and still devastatingly magnetic, asking for marriage like it's a business pitch. Nora closed her eyes, tried to breathe, but all she could hear was that voice. I'm asking you to marry me. No, not yet. The next day was a blur. She stood in front of her classroom lecturing on 19th century poetry with a detachment of someone whose soul was somewhere else. Her students didn't notice. They were too busy scrolling, yawning, living in a world that hadn't broken them yet. At lunch, she pushed food around her tray, ignored her coworkers' chatter, and checked her phone more times than she'd admit. No messages, no calls. Not that she expected any. Vivian wasn't the type to beg. She offered. You either said yes or you didn't. Still, when the school day ended, Nora didn't go home. She went to the park, the one near campus, where they used to spend hours sprawled on the grass, sharing fries, and mocking the couples who made out too loudly. It hadn't changed much. Same benches, same stubborn pigeons, same fountain that always smelled vaguely of pennies and summer. She sat there for a while breathing it in. And then, because the universe had a sense of humor, Vivian appeared. No driver, no entourage, just her in jeans and a coat too expensive to pretend to be casual, walking like the sidewalk owed her something. Nora stood, already bristling. Are you following me? No, I guessed. Of course you did. You always came here when you needed to think. You don't get to remember things about me. Why not? Because you left. Vivian's jaw tightened. You don't know why. And you never gave me the chance to. I wanted to, but you didn't. Nora, no. Don't say my name like we're still us. We're not. Vivian stepped closer. I know what I did. And I'm sorry. I handled it the only way I knew how badly. I was scared and selfish, and it's taken me 5 years to admit that out loud. Nora stared at her. Why me? Vivian blinked. What? Why not find someone else? A socialite, a model, one of the women who actually belong in your world. Because they all want something from me. And you think I don't. I think you want something real. You always did. Nora folded her arms. So, you think I'm your safest bet? I think you're the only person I trust not to turn this into a circus. I'm not a lifeboat, Vivian. I know. And I'm not your consolation prize. You never were. That silence again. The one that used to mean say something before I do. Nora looked away. What happens if I say no? Then I lose my inheritance. And what happens if you do? Vivian hesitated. I lose control. My family hands everything to my cousin. I get a payout. Sure, but no stake, no board seat, no power. It's not about the money, Nora. It's about keeping what's mine. You're still fighting them, aren't you? Always. And I'm supposed to help you win. Vivian's voice softened. You used to want to. Nora hated how much that sentence hurt. She turned away, ready to leave. But then Vivian added, quiet. Do you remember the last thing I said to you? Nora stopped. Yes. What was it? Don't wait for me. And you said, I won't. Did you? Nora didn't answer. Didn't look back. Just walked away with her heart thundering, her breath uneven, and her past clawing its way into the present. She didn't sleep that night either. Not because she didn't want to, but because her mind kept replaying the way Vivian had looked at her. Like she was the only lifeline in a world full of wolves. And damn her, but a part of Nora still wanted to save her. Nora didn't hear from Vivian for 3 days. Not a message, not a call, not even a ghost of her in the shadows outside Nora's apartment. Though part of her kept glancing out the window like she expected to see that familiar black car parked across the street. She hated how disappointed she was. Hated how silence from Vivian felt louder than anything else. But she also knew what she was doing, protecting herself, because being near Vivian was like standing too close to a fire. She swore she could handle until it burned her again. Still, when the school week ended and Friday night rolled in like a fog, Nora found herself walking through Harbor City with no real destination. Her feet led her as if pulled by something her heart hadn't agreed to. She ended up in front of a building she hadn't seen in years, the Marlowe Foundation. Sleek, monolithic, cold glass, and silver letters that screamed power. The inside was worse. All white marble and curated silence with an assistant who barely looked up before asking. Appointment. Tell her Nora's here, she said. The assistant paused, blinked, then picked up the phone. Less than a minute later, the elevator opened. Vivian was standing inside alone. She'll see you now, the assistant said, but Nora was already walking. They didn't speak on the ride up. Vivian didn't look surprised to see her, just tired, like she'd been carrying a weight even her name couldn't shield her from. When the doors opened, Nora expected an office. What she got was a rooftop. Cold air, string lights, and a single table with 2 glasses of wine waiting untouched. You brought me to a rooftop again, Nora said quietly. It seemed fitting. Why? Because last time I left you with nothing but silence. I didn't want to do that again. Nora stepped out, crossing her arms. This is dramatic, even for you. I wanted you to see what you'd be marrying into. All of it. Not just the pressure, the lawyers, contracts, deadlines. This. She gestured at the skyline. The future I've chased my whole life, and I'm supposed to fit into that, Nora said. No, Vivian answered. You're supposed to change it. That threw Nora. Excuse me? I'm tired of building a legacy that doesn't feel like mine. I've been molded by other people's expectations since I could walk. But you, she stepped closer. You were the only person who made me want something different. With you, I didn't have to perform. You performed with me, too. I know. And I hate that. Nora's voice cracked. You broke me, Vivian. You vanished without a word. I waited, for a text, a letter, anything. You chose them over me. I chose survival. You could have trusted me. I should have. But you didn't. No, Vivian said, her voice shaking for the first time. And I think about it every day. Nora blinked hard. So why now? Because I won't make the same mistake twice. Vivian was close enough that Nora caught the hint of vanilla on her skin. I won't pretend I'm not asking for the impossible. But I'm offering something real. You could say no. Walk away. I wouldn't blame you. But if any part of you wonders what might have been if I hadn't left, her gaze searched Nora's, then say yes. Nora's chest was a battlefield, past selves shouting at once, but her voice stayed steady. You still don't get it. Then explain it. I never needed your money. I never cared about your name. I loved you before any of that mattered. And you shattered it without looking back. Now you're here with a deal like I should believe it means more. It does. Prove it. I'm trying. Nora drew a breath. This isn't just a contract. If I do this, it's not for money or a title. It's because part of me still believes in the you I saw back then, the one who snuck me flowers after class and fell asleep with her head in my lap, quoting Virginia Woolf. Vivian's composure split. She still exists. Then show me. Nora stepped back. I'm not saying yes. Not yet. But I'll see you tomorrow. You will? If I'm going to marry you, I need to remember who I'd be marrying. She turned for the elevator. Vivian didn't follow. She stood there, breathless and afraid, because for once this wasn't about business. It was about Nora. And if she lost her again, she wouldn't survive it twice. Nora arrived at the Marlowe estate the next day in jeans, beat-up boots, and a denim jacket from college. She wasn't trying to impress. She was trying to remember who Vivian Marlowe was before the diamonds, the legacy, the 5-year edge to her gaze. Vivian opened the massive oak door herself, no staff, no assistant, barefoot in black leggings and a loose navy sweater, hair in a messy knot too soft for someone so controlled. She stared a beat too long, then stepped aside. You came. You told me to, Nora said, stepping in. I didn't say I was coming alone. Vivian arched a brow. You brought backup? Memories. Doubt. A little spite. The usual. Vivian actually laughed, quiet, genuine, and something buried in Nora stirred. The house was the same, marble and glass, soaring windows, expensive silence. But the lights were low, fireplaces lit, and the air smelled faintly of cinnamon. Are you baking? Nora asked, suspicious. I had someone bake. A beet. But I made the tea. Nora smirked. Look at you, domestic goddess. Don't push it. They settled in the living room. Nora took in the gold frames, velvet furniture, and the oversized oil painting above the fireplace that had always creeped her out. I forgot how intimidating your house is. You said it looked like a museum with commitment issues. Still does. They sipped tea, ate cookies, talked about old professors, bad dates, worse movies, and slowly the tension softened. Nora found herself leaning into the familiarity. Vivian loosened. Her shoulders dropped. She smiled more, and when their fingers brushed as they reached for the same cookie, neither pulled away. I miss this, Vivian said finally, voice low. I missed you. Nora didn't speak. She couldn't. Can I show you something? Vivian stood. Nora followed her down the hall, past locked doors and untouched rooms. Vivian opened a door at the end of the corridor Nora had never noticed before. Inside was light, color, canvas, paint, chaos. What is this? My studio. Vivian said, You paint? I used to a long time ago. I stopped when everything got loud. And now I'm trying to remember who I was before the noise. Nora stepped closer to a canvas. A half-finished piece, bold and abstract, jagged lines and clashing colors. It was angry alive. This one's about me, she said. Vivian smiled faintly. That obvious? It's too messy to be about anyone else. You were never messy. You were human and I couldn't handle that. But you want to now? Vivian didn't answer. She walked to a drawer and pulled out a velvet box. Inside were 2 simple rings, no diamonds, just white gold and quiet intention. I had them made, she said. No pressure, but I needed to see what it felt like to hold something real again. Nora stared at the rings, then at Vivian. I'm not doing this for the money. I know, and I'm not doing it just for you. Vivian's voice caught. Then why? Because I think I want to find out what we could have been and maybe still could be. Silence. Then Vivian reached forward slow, tentative, and touched Nora's hand. So, is that a yes? Nora didn't smile, didn't look away. It's a maybe, but it's enough to get started. Vivian exhaled, relief and terror mixing in her eyes. You have no idea what you're about to walk into. I grew up poor, slept on a futon for 3 years, and survived your ghost. I think I can handle your family. You might regret this. Probably, but you'll still marry me. Nora nodded. I'll marry you. Vivian stepped closer. For real? For now? Good enough. They stood there inches apart. Eyes locked, the past trembling behind them and the future cracking open in front of them. We need a plan, Nora said. Rules, a story, details. Already drafted it. Of course you did. Vivian smirked. I'm sending my lawyer tomorrow. She'll walk you through the agreement. 2 years ironclad. After that, you're free with a percentage of the inheritance and full ownership of whatever business you want to launch. And what do you get? Vivian's voice softened. You, even if it's just pretend. Nora looked at her. We both know it won't be. The first kiss didn't come that night, but the weight of it hung between them like something inevitable, like gravity, like truth they weren't ready to speak yet, but already felt in every glance. The ring felt too heavy on Nora's finger. Not because of its weight, it was thin, simple, elegant, nothing flashy, but because of what it meant. Even if this marriage was a lie, even if the lines between reality and performance were still blurred, this metal band on her hand screamed permanence in a way nothing else in her life ever had. Vivian sat beside her in the back of the town car, legs crossed, hands folded in her lap with clinical precision. But every so often, her pinky brushed against Nora's. Intentional, accidental? Nora couldn't tell. Are you ready for this? Vivian asked, her voice quiet, almost reluctant. You're asking me that now? Nora said, eyebrows raised. On our way to the engagement dinner with your family? Vivian looked straight ahead. They're going to hate it. Why? Because they hate me. That's comforting. They think I'm impulsive. That I inherited the name, but not the discipline. They're already trying to hand the company to Colin, your cousin. The human embodiment of a necktie. Yes. Wow. Nora exhaled and rubbed her palms against her dress. Okay, walk me through the script again. We reconnected last year at an alumni gala. Started dating a few months later. Got serious quickly. You moved into the apartment 3 weeks ago. I proposed 3 days after that. Romantic. Unrealistic enough to raise eyebrows, but plausible enough to pass legal review. And the real story. Vivian paused. You showed up and I needed you. So, we're going with desperate nostalgia as our foundation. You tell me you're the one who said yes. Nora didn't respond. She looked out the window at the glittering skyline, trying to ignore the way Vivian's perfume was crawling under her skin like a memory she hadn't invited back. The restaurant was a cathedral of glass and tension. Her heels clicked against marble as they entered. Arm in arm, the hostess barely blinked before guiding them to a private room where a long table stretched beneath a chandelier that probably cost more than Nora's apartment. And there they were, the Marlowe. 5 of them, all polished, all perfect, all with expressions like they'd swallowed something bitter. Vivian introduced her quickly. This is Nora Hale, my fiancée. A beat of silence. Then her mother spoke. Charming. We weren't aware you weren't involved. Nora smiled tight. It was fast. Clearly. Her uncle sniffed. Do you work, Miss Hale? Yes, I'm a teacher. Oh. The word dripped condescension. High school, college, literature. Right. That explains the creativity. Nora felt Vivian tense beside her, but her voice stayed smooth. Nora graduated top of her class, and unlike most people at this table, she actually knows how to hold a conversation. Her aunt fake laughed. So sharp, Vivian, inherited it from grandfather. You also inherited his need to destroy tradition. No, Vivian said, I inherited his company, which is why I don't have time for this. For what, dear? Her mother asked, for questioning my decisions. This engagement is happening. The wedding will be small, private, and fully legal. Her mother's gaze sharpened and permanent. Nora reached under the table and took Vivian's hand. Warm, firm, as permanent as it needs to be, she said. The conversation shifted. More wine, more passive aggression. But Nora kept holding Vivian's hand and Vivian didn't let go. Later in the car, neither of them spoke for a long time. Then Vivian said, that was awful. I've had root canals that were friendlier. You were perfect. Nora laughed dry. If by perfect you mean I didn't flip the table, then yes, you didn't have to defend me. Yes, I did. Vivian looked at her. Why? Because I might hate you sometimes, but I don't hate them more. You really meant what you said, didn't you? About doing this for more than the money. I did. Vivian's eyes dropped to Nora's lips. Then can I ask you something dangerous? Nora raised an eyebrow. Define dangerous. Can I kiss you? You're asking permission. I don't want to feel like part of the deal. Nora didn't answer. She leaned in slow, close, and kissed her. Not a performance. Not for the lawyers or the family or the press. Just lips on lips, soft and aching, mouths tasting the ghost of what they used to be. It didn't last long. But when it ended, Vivian didn't move away. We're in trouble, she whispered. I know, Nora breathed. But we'll pretend we're not. The kiss had changed everything. And that was the problem. Nora could still feel it days later, not just on her lips, but deep beneath her skin, like a burn that hadn't scabbed over. And judging by how Vivian was acting, she felt it, too. The morning after the engagement dinner, Nora woke up in Vivian's penthouse, alone in the guest room, sunlight slicing through the floor-to-ceiling windows and burning into her like a spotlight. She sat up, disoriented, until she heard footsteps in the kitchen. Coffee, clinking, silence. She found Vivian standing by the island, her hair down, black silk robe tied at the waist, holding a cup like it was the only thing tethering her to the ground. Morning, Nora said cautiously. Vivian didn't look at her. Coffee always. Nora took the mug offered. Their fingers touched brief electric. Both flinched. We should talk, Vivian said, her voice measured. That's never good. We crossed a line. Nora looked at her. Did we? It was a kiss. Sure. One that made my spine melt. Vivian finally looked up. Her expression was unreadable. That's exactly why we need to stop. Nora leaned against the counter. You regret it. No, but you're scared of what it meant. I'm scared of what it could mean. Same thing. This can't become real. Vivian said flatly. We agreed. No, you agreed. I never said I could lie to myself that well. Nora, don't worry. She said, sipping her coffee like it didn't burn. We'll keep it professional. Just business. Marriage of convenience. No emotions. No more kisses and friendship. Vivian's voice was quieter now. Can we at least have that? Nora hesitated. You think we can go back to being friends after what happened between us? I'm willing to try. Then try. The rest of the day was a careful choreography of avoidance. Meetings with Vivian's lawyer. More rehearsed backstory revisions. Nora had to memorize names, dates, events, how many times Vivian supposedly slept over at her place before moving in. They practiced holding hands without flinching, smiling without meaning it, laughing like a couple in love. It was disturbingly easy. Too easy. That night, Vivian had to attend a formal fundraising gala. Black tie, press presents, high expectations. Nora didn't want to go, but she showed up anyway. In a navy gown, Vivian had delivered to her closet with a note. Wear this. You'll look better than all of them. She didn't write, I'll be staring at you all night. But Nora read it between the lines. At the event, Nora stood on Vivian's arm, smiling, posing, answering shallow questions about how they met and what first attracted you to each other. Vivian played the part flawlessly. Nora did too. But every time their eyes met, something cracked. On the ride home, silence returned. Thick, inevitable. When they reached the penthouse, Nora started walking toward the guest room. Good night, she said softly. Nora, don't. She turned to face her. If this is business, let it be business. Vivian didn't move. I'm sorry I kissed you. I'm not. Nora said, I'm just sorry we can't survive what it meant. I want this to work. Then stop blurring the lines. And if I can't, Nora's eyes met hers. Then this marriage is doomed before it even starts. And with that, she disappeared into the guest room, leaving Vivian alone in the hallway, heart racing, hands clenched. The taste of Nora still lingering on her lips. And the terrifying thought that maybe a fake marriage was safer than feeling something real ever again. The press caught wind of the engagement before either of them were ready. It started with a blurry photo. Vivian and Nora stepping out of the gala arm in arm. Vivian looking polished and aloof. Nora laughing at something the world couldn't hear. The caption read, Vivian Marlowe's mystery fiancé revealed. Teacher turned heiress. By morning, the story had spread like fire. Social media dissected Nora's clothes, her smile, the way Vivian's hand rested at the small of her back. Half the internet wanted to know who she was. The other half wanted to know how she got there. You're trending, Vivian said flatly, holding out her phone as Nora walked into the kitchen in flannel pajama pants and an old band tee. Fantastic, Nora muttered. Always wanted to be judged by strangers before I've had coffee. They're already creating timelines, speculating when we met, how we reconnected. There's a Reddit thread accusing us of faking everything. Nora raised an eyebrow. How ironic. Vivian didn't smile. We need to get ahead of it. Control the narrative. Is this the part where we start rehearsing exclusive interviews and planning baby names? Don't be ridiculous. You're the one who said we can't blur the lines. Exactly. So, let's make this look real without getting messy. Nora stared at her. I think we passed messy 6 kisses ago. 1 kiss. Sure. Tell yourself that. Vivian sighed, rubbing her temples. We're leaving town. Excuse me. Weekend getaway. My PR team thinks we need to be seen in a more casual romantic setting. Something less high society. So, we're going to fake a honeymoon before the wedding. More or less. Where? My family's summer house in Vermont. Oh, cozy. Private. I'm sure the photographers already have the coordinates. Nora let out a dry laugh. Perfect. Nothing says romantic getaway like a cabin under surveillance. Vivian ignored the jab. Pack light. 2 days. And how exactly are we explaining this to your family? They don't need to know, do they? Right. Secrets stacked on secrets. Great foundation. You agreed to this. Yeah. I just didn't realize it came with paparazzi and emotional whiplash. They left that evening. The drive was mostly quiet, punctuated by updates from Vivian's assistant, media chatter, a flood of interview requests. Nora scrolled where she shouldn't. She's not even pretty. Gold digger energy. You can tell Marlowe's not into her. The last one landed harder than expected. Stop reading that trash, Vivian said, eyes on the road. It's weirdly fascinating, watching strangers measure my worth in pixels and assumptions. You're not who they think. Neither are you. They reached the house just before midnight, enormous. Whitewood with black trim, perched on a hill ringed by evergreens and hush. Inside, it smelled like cedar and old ghosts. We'll have to share a bed, Vivian said, dropping her bag. Seriously? The guest room's being renovated. And if photos leak of you sleeping elsewhere, people will start asking questions. Questions like, why does your fake fiancé look 2 seconds from strangling you in every candid? Exactly. The bedroom was vast and minimalist, one bed, a pair of wine glasses waiting by the fireplace. Nora sat on the edge of the mattress, tugging off her boots. Do we at least get to pick sides? I don't care. I barely sleep. Great. That makes 2 of us. They lay in the dark, a careful ocean of space between them, backs turned. Sleep refused to come. Nora stared at the ceiling. Why me, really? She asked into the quiet. Out of everyone you could have picked. Vivian's voice softened, hesitant. Because I knew you wouldn't pretend to be someone you're not. And maybe I needed someone to remind me how to be that brave again. Nora shut her eyes. Her chest ached. I'm not brave. I'm terrified. Me too. Minutes stretched. Then Vivian whispered, barely there, Nora? Yeah? If things were different, would you have said yes? Nora didn't answer, not for lack of one, but because the truth felt too dangerous to release. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, hushed, blanketing the world in a silence that felt a lot like denial. Nora woke to the sound of Vivian breathing, slow, steady, too close. Sometime in the night their no-touch, no-feelings truce had dissolved. Vivian had rolled over. Or Nora had. Now they were tangled, legs entwined, Nora's hand resting against the silk at Vivian's waist like it belonged. She didn't move. Couldn't. Her heartbeat thundered. She stared at the ceiling and reminded herself none of this was real, this warmth, this ease, the softness of Vivian's sleeping face. None of it was part of the deal. And yet it was everything Nora used to imagine 5 years ago, lying awake in her dorm, thinking about the girl who laughed like she was defying silence. The girl who used to steal Nora's hoodies and curl up on her side of the couch like it meant nothing, like it meant everything. Nora blinked, swallowed slowly, started to untangle herself. But as she shifted, Vivian stirred a soft groan, a wrinkle between her eyebrows, and then still half asleep, she whispered, stay. One word barely formed, but it stopped Nora cold. She didn't answer. She didn't move. And neither of them spoke again. They got out of bed late, too late for breakfast. The house was silent except for the hum of the radiator and the distant patter of snow against the windows. Nora pulled on one of Vivian's oversized sweaters and padded barefoot into the kitchen. She found Vivian already there dressed in a turtleneck and dark jeans, reading something on her tablet with a mug of black coffee. She didn't look up. We should be seen in town, she said, voice neutral. There's a market, some small shops, good photo opportunities. You really know how to show a girl a good time, Nora muttered, grabbing a banana. Vivian's mouth twitched. We'll hold hands, smile, maybe feed each other something. Sounds awful. It is. Can I at least choose the music in the car? Vivian finally looked up. Are you planning to torture me with indie folk again? You love it. I tolerated it. You Shazammed 3 of the songs Don't Lie. Vivian didn't answer, but the ghost of a smile crossed her face before she turned away. The drive into town was short, and the moment they stepped out of the car, Nora felt the shift. Yes, phones, subtle angles, paparazzi pretending to be casual tourists. How do you live like this? She asked through clenched teeth as they walked past a bakery. You get used to it. I don't want to get used to it. You don't have to. Just for 2 years. Nora almost stumbled. The words stung more than she expected. Just 2 years. Just pretend. They stopped in front of a florist and Vivian handed her a bouquet of tiny white roses. Smile, she murmured. Pretend I gave these to you because I remembered you like wildflowers. Nora tilted her head. You remembered? Vivian didn't answer. She didn't have to. At a cafe. They sat on the patio under fairy lights. They fed each other bites of croissant, laughed on cue, leaned in close when they knew the cameras were watching. It felt mechanical, easy, dangerous, too dangerous. When they returned to the house, Nora dropped the act immediately. She kicked off her boots, peeled off the sweater, and muttered, I'm going for a walk alone. Yes. Before I forget who I am in all this. Nora, don't. Not unless you're going to say something real. Vivian didn't follow. The forest was quiet, blanketed in snow and stillness. Nora walked until her toes were numb, her lungs burning, her mind racing. She wanted to scream at the sky, at herself, at Vivian for being everything she ever wanted and nothing she could trust. When she returned hours later, Vivian was waiting in the living room, a book in her lap and firelight dancing across her face. "You were gone a long time," she said. "I needed air." And now Nora sank into the armchair across from her. "Now I need rules." Vivian sat the book down. "We already have them. Not the legal ones. Us personal boundaries, emotional safety nets, because this is getting dangerous." "You think I'm dangerous?" "I think this is the pretending, the not pretending. The way you look at me like you're remembering things I'm still trying to forget." Vivian's jaw tightened. "What do you want?" "Clarity." "I can't give you that then. I can't give you more of myself than what we agreed to." Silence. Long, brutal. Then Vivian nodded once. "Friends then." "Business partners," Nora corrected. "With history, with boundaries." "Exactly. And when this ends, we go back to separate lives." "That easy? That hard?" Vivian looked down, her hands clenched in her lap. "Okay." Nora stood, walked toward the hallway, then stopped. "Do you regret it?" "The kiss." Vivian didn't look up. "I regret not kissing you sooner." Nora didn't reply. She just kept walking into the dark, into her room, into the safety of distance, even as her heart begged her to stay. It wasn't supposed to matter. That was the whole point of the rules. But somehow, every time Vivian laughed too softly or stood too close or touched the small of Nora's back in public, it did. Every time Vivian turned her head just slightly when Nora spoke. Like listening to her was the only thing in the world that mattered. It burned a little deeper. And the worst part was that Nora didn't know when it had started. Maybe the second Vivian whispered stay in her sleep. Maybe when she admitted she didn't regret the kiss. Or maybe it had always been there. Buried under 5 years of silence and self-preservation, waiting for the right lie to set it free. Back in the city, the pace picked up. They were photographed nearly every day exiting restaurants, attending charity events, walking hand in hand down streets they didn't belong to. Vivian took it in stride, cold and flawless. Nora struggled. At one event, a woman approached them with a glass of champagne in one hand and a stare sharp enough to cut diamonds. "You must be Nora," she said. "I've heard so much about you." "Hopefully not from Vivian," Nora replied with a smile. "Her version of me isn't always the most flattering." Vivian didn't flinch. The woman laughed. "I'm Celeste. Vivian and I used to know each other." Nora arched an eyebrow. How intimately Vivian stepped in. "Celeste is a family friend." "Ex-girlfriend." Celeste corrected, eyes glittering. "But I'm sure she told you that." "She didn't." Nora said. "Cool. But that's okay. I'm a fan of history, especially the kind that doesn't repeat itself." The tension was thick enough to sip. Vivian led Nora away by the hand. Fast and quiet, jaw tight. "What was that?" she asked when they reached the car. "You want real or polite?" "Real." That woman looked at me like I was a stain on her clutch. She looks at everyone that way. "Did you love her?" Vivian stared ahead. "No. But you slept with her." "It was a mistake. A distraction." "Is that what I am, too?" Vivian turned sharply. "No." Nora looked out the window. "It's hard to remember that when we keep pretending this means nothing. It's harder to remember that I'm not allowed to want more." Nora swallowed. "So, don't what?" "Don't want more. Don't look at me like that. Don't make me forget the contract because every time you touch my hand in front of a camera or whisper my name when no one's around, I start to think maybe this isn't so fake after all." Vivian's voice broke slightly. "Maybe it isn't." "No," Nora said firm. "We made rules. Then maybe the rules are broken. And what happens when the lawyers notice?" "Let them." "You think you can protect me from all of this?" Nora asked. "You can barely protect yourself." Silence. They arrived home late. Neither spoke. Nora went to the guest room this time, locked the door, laid down fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling. But at 2 a.m., a knock. Soft, familiar. "Nora?" Vivian's voice, barely there. "Are you awake?" Nora hesitated. Her heart was screaming. She stood slowly. "Open the door." Vivian stood in an oversized t-shirt, barefoot, looking more vulnerable than Nora had ever seen her. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "And you thought I could?" Vivian didn't smile. "I just wanted to see you." "Why?" Vivian looked at her for a long, aching moment. Then she reached out and held Nora's hand. Not like before, not for show, not for strategy, just held it. Because when I'm near you, the world doesn't feel so heavy. Nora pulled her in. No words, no explanations. They didn't kiss, didn't strip the moment of its gravity with heat or hunger. They just lay down together, clothes on, hearts open, silence pulsing between them like truth. And for the first time since this all began, Nora realized something terrifying. She wasn't pretending anymore, and she wasn't sure Vivian was either. The call came the next morning. Vivian was still asleep, her head resting lightly on Nora's shoulder, one arm draped across her waist like she didn't even realize it. Nora didn't want to move. She didn't want to breathe. But when the phone buzzed again, insistent and sharp against the nightstand, she slipped out from under Vivian's arm and answered with a whisper. "Hello, Miss Hale." The voice was clipped. Male, unfamiliar. "This is Graham Sterling. I represent the legal team overseeing the Marlowe estate." Nora's spine straightened. "What's going on?" "I need to speak with you and Ms. Marlowe immediately in person." "Why?" "Because your engagement has been flagged for review." Nora felt the words like ice against her skin. Flagged. There are suspicions. I'd rather not discuss this over the phone. I'm on my way to the apartment. I suggest you wake your fiancé. The line went dead. Nora stood in the quiet, watching Vivian stir gently in the bed, still lost in some dream that hadn't been shattered yet. She didn't want to be the one to shatter it, but she was already reaching for her. "Vivian," she said soft, then again firmer. Vivian blinked awake, groggy. "What?" "We have a problem." 30 minutes later, they sat across from Graham Sterling in the penthouse study. Both of them dressed pale and tense. He was all crisp suit and thin patience with papers spread in front of him and a pen tapping rhythmically against the table. "There are inconsistencies," he began, "timelines that don't quite add up. Photos that suggest distance rather than intimacy. A lack of verified cohabitation before the announcement." "We live together," Vivian snapped. "She's in this apartment right now." "Yes, but the apartment was recently updated to reflect her presence. Utilities, credit cards, digital records, all of it too clean." Nora frowned. "You've been spying on us." "We've been verifying." "It's the same thing." "Your marriage is a condition of inheritance," Sterling continued, ignoring her. "If it's proven to be fraudulent, it's not." "Then prove it." "We are." He looked at Nora now. "Miss Hale, how long have you and Ms. Marlowe known each other?" "Since college." "And when did your romantic relationship begin?" "A little over a year ago." "Where did she propose?" "Here. In the kitchen." "Do you have photos?" "No." "Witnesses?" "No." "Do you see the issue?" Nora clenched her fists. "This isn't a scam. You'd be surprised how often love is used as a cover for greed." Vivian's voice cut through the room. "Don't speak to her like that." Sterling paused, then closed his folder. "You'll be under review for the next 30 days. During that time, any sign of separation, inconsistency, or deception could nullify your claim. You'll be monitored discreetly legally." "Of course, we will," Nora said under her breath. "Have a good day, ladies." He left. The silence afterward was crushing. Vivian stood pacing. "They're coming after us." "You mean me?" "That's not what I meant. But it's true, isn't it? You dragged me into this and now I'm under surveillance for fraud." "I didn't drag you." "You said yes." "Because I cared about you. Because I thought." She stopped, bit back the rest. Vivian looked at her, eyes fierce. "Because you thought what?" "That maybe this wasn't just about the money. That maybe we were building something real." "Nora, don't. We made rules. You were the one who begged for them, but you're the one who keeps breaking them." "So do you." Nora stepped closer. "Yeah, I do. And maybe that was my mistake." Vivian's voice dropped. "Do you regret saying yes?" Nora's throat tightened. "I regret not knowing how to protect myself from you." They didn't speak again for the rest of the day, but the distance between them was louder than any argument. That night, they didn't share a bed. Nora stayed in the guest room. Vivian stayed in the master. And for the first time since Vermont, neither of them slept. Somewhere in the quiet, Nora stared at the ceiling and wondered if she'd been wrong. If love wasn't the thing blurring the line, but the thing that had never even had a chance to exist between them. Not in the right way, not in the real way. But even as her chest ached and the doubts twisted like knives, she knew the truth underneath it all. If this fell apart now, it wouldn't be because they were pretending too well. It would be because they'd stopped pretending altogether. Vivian didn't speak to Nora for 2 days, not in words. Anyway, she passed her coffee without looking her in the eye. She sat on the opposite side of the town car, phone in hand, pretending the silence between them wasn't pulsing with everything they'd left unsaid. Nora didn't push. She couldn't. Her chest already felt cracked open, raw from everything that had unraveled so quickly. It was supposed to be simple. A favor, a deal, a temporary solution. But now there were people watching, lawyers circling, a family ready to pounce, and a woman Nora couldn't stop thinking about. Even when that woman was sitting 3 feet away, refusing to acknowledge the mess they'd made of each other. On the third day, it exploded. Not with a scream, not even with a shout, but with one sentence. You need to move into the master bedroom permanently. Vivian's voice was flat, her arms crossed. Back to Nora. Nora blinked. Excuse me. The review team requested surprise inspections. They want to see consistent cohabitation, shared space, intimacy, and you waited until now to tell me. Vivian turned around, cold steel in her voice. I didn't want to fight with you in front of my assistant. Oh, so you saved it for when we were alone. How considerate. This isn't about you. Of course it is. Nora snapped. I'm the one they're questioning. I'm the one they'll tear apart when this thing starts to fall apart. Then don't let it fall apart. You think I'm the one who's letting go? Nora stepped closer. You think I haven't been holding this up with both hands while you pretend like your heart isn't tangled up in this just like mine? Don't do that, Vivian said. Don't assume you know what's in my heart. I don't have to assume. Nora whispered. I feel it every time you look at me like you want to kiss me, but you don't, like you shouldn't. Vivian flinched. For a second, something cracked in her. Something too honest to be elegant. You think I don't want to? I think you're terrified that if you do, this stops being pretend. It already has, Vivian said. Just like that, out loud. No hesitation. Nora felt her breath catch. Then say it, she whispered. Say you feel something for me. Vivian stared at her and didn't. The silence hit harder than any lie. Nora shook her head. That's what I thought. She turned to walk away, to flee, to breathe, to survive. But Vivian caught her wrist. Nora, wait. For what? For me to stop being a coward. Nora didn't move, then stop. Vivian hesitated, then stepped forward. So close now that their foreheads nearly touched. Her breath was warm. Her voice shook. I didn't plan on falling in love with you again. Nora's throat tightened again. I loved you in college, Vivian admitted. I just didn't know it until you were gone. Nora's heart cracked open. You're 5 years too late. I know, but I'm trying to be right now. She reached up, her fingers trembling, brushing a strand of hair from Nora's face. And right now, I'm terrified because if this marriage falls apart, I lose everything. But if I lose you, it'll destroy me in a way no inheritance ever could. Nora didn't answer with words. She kissed her slow, aching, honest. Not for cameras, not for contracts, not for strategy, for them. When they pulled apart, Nora pressed her forehead against Vivian's. If we're going to do this, it has to be real. No more running. No more rules. No more pretending. Vivian nodded breathless. Then let's stop pretending. That night, Nora moved her things into the master bedroom, not because someone told her to, but because she wanted to wake up next to Vivian, not as a contract, but as a choice. For the first time since the proposal, it finally felt like marriage. The shift was subtle at first. A glance held longer than necessary. A hand reaching across the bed in the middle of the night, not for comfort, but for connection. Breakfast made without asking. Laughter that didn't sound like rehearsal. They never spoke about the kiss again, about the confession, about the promise to stop pretending, but they didn't have to. Every touch now came with a weight that wasn't there before. Every stolen moment of silence buzzed with the memory of lips and breath and fear. Nora woke up in Vivian's arms 3 mornings in a row. No distance, no performance, just the soft warmth of skin and breath and heartbeat, like maybe this was always how it was supposed to be. But reality had no patience for romance. The press had only grown more invasive. Paparazzi staked out their building. Gossip sites speculated daily about the legitimacy of their relationship. Headlines screamed the eyes and the teacher. Real or rigged? And as the wedding date drew closer, the scrutiny became unbearable. We need to give them something undeniable, Vivian said one evening as she paced the living room. A stack of legal documents spread across the table. They want proof. They want permanence. We need to get married sooner. Sooner? Nora asked from the couch. How much sooner? Next week. Nora blinked. That's insane. We don't have a choice. They're already questioning the engagement. If we push the wedding, it gives them ammunition. And if we rush it, it makes it look desperate. Vivian's voice cracked. It is desperate. Nora stood. Were you not telling me? Vivian hesitated. Looked away. Colin is trying to force a vote with the board. He wants control of the company before the inheritance transfers. Nora's eyes narrowed. He can't do that, can he? Not if the marriage is official, legal, untouchable. Nora stepped closer. And what happens to us after the wedding? Vivian's voice softened. We figured out together. Nora reached out and brushed her fingers along Vivian's. Okay, let's get married. The wedding was quiet, not the media frenzy the Marlowe name usually attracted. Vivian made sure of it. Only a handful of people attended, a legal witness, her most trusted assistant, and an officiant who barely looked up from the paperwork. Nora wore a simple white dress. Vivian wore black. They signed the documents with shaking hands, said the vows like they were trying not to cry, and kissed in front of the cameras because they had to. But later, when they were alone in the car, Nora turned to her, eyes soft, voice low, and asked, "Can we do it again?" Do what? Say the vows just us. Vivian stared at her, then nodded. Nora took her hand. I promise to stand beside you when things are easy and when they're impossible. I promise to see you not just the name, not just the business, but you. The girl who paints in secret. The woman who talks in her sleep. The one who makes me feel like I'm not just surviving. I'm living. Vivian's eyes filled. Her hand trembled. I promise to let you in even when I'm scared. I promise to stop pushing you away when I need you most. I promise to try for real. Not because we signed a paper, but because I don't want to spend another second pretending you don't mean everything to me. Their second kiss was quieter, slower, no cameras, no pressure, just mouths, hearts, promises. That night, they made love for the first time. Not because the story required it, not because it was part of the role, but because it was the only thing left between them that hadn't already burned to the surface. It was gentle, intense, honest. Afterward, they lay tangled in silence. Nora's head on Vivian's chest, fingers tracing the lines of her ribs like trying to memorize the blueprint of something fragile and finally real. So, what now? Nora whispered. Vivian kissed her hair. Now we fight to keep this. And if it falls apart, then at least it was never fake. But deep down they both knew what they had now was the most real thing either of them had ever touched. And if the world tried to tear it apart, it would have to fight for every piece of it. The wedding changed everything. And yet, outside the doors of that quiet ceremony, the world kept spinning louder and sharper than ever. Nora and Vivian barely had time to settle into the quiet glow of what they'd finally allowed themselves to feel before the first headline hit. Secret documents revealed. Was the marriage staged for money? Beneath it, photos. Too many photos. Some old, some recent. One of Nora walking alone in the city before the engagement. One of Vivian leaving a board meeting with Colin behind her. And one particularly cruel image of the two of them at a cafe. Vivian smiling tightly while Nora stared down at her coffee. Seemingly cold, distant, a moment taken out of context, twisted into something false. The press went into a frenzy. Analysts speculated. Bloggers theorized. A source close to the Marlowe family leaked a supposed timeline of inconsistencies that threatened to unravel everything. The firm called Vivian the next morning. Her voice was cold as steel when she answered. But Nora could see it in her eyes. She was panicking. They want me to step aside until the investigation is complete, Vivian said, her phone still in her hand, her knuckles white. Step aside? That's your company. It's my grandfather's legacy. And right now, they think I've tarnished it because of me. Because of us. Nora moved toward her. Vivian, I should have known they wouldn't let me have this, any of it. Her voice cracked. Nora touched her arm gently. You're not alone. Vivian turned to her. You don't understand. This isn't just about love or contracts. This is about control, power. They've been waiting for me to make a mistake, and now they think they found it. Then let me fight with you. Vivian blinked. What? I'm your wife, remember? Nora said, lifting her chin. They want proof this marriage is real. Let's give it to them. Not with press releases or photos. With the truth. Vivian studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. But if we do this, we do it together. The next day, Nora agreed to give her first interview live. One-on-one. No PR coaching, no pre-approved questions, just her and a very curious, very skeptical anchor named Avery Monroe. Vivian watched from backstage. Nora wore a simple black dress, her hair and soft curls, no jewelry except the wedding band. She sat on the studio couch like she belonged there, like she wasn't terrified. Avery didn't waste time. Many people believe your marriage to Vivian Marlowe was arranged for the inheritance. What do you say to them? Nora took a breath. I say I didn't marry her for the money. I married her because I couldn't stand the idea of her facing that storm alone. Because I've known her for years, because I know the difference between a lie and a lifeline, and she's always been the latter. Avery raised an eyebrow. You never once considered what you'd gain. Nora didn't blink. Of course I did. I considered the life I could have with her. The life we'd never tried for. The life we almost had 5 years ago before we both let fear ruin it. I'm not pretending this marriage started perfect. But what we have now is honest, even if it didn't start that way. The clip went viral. Within hours, public opinion shifted. Fans flooded comment sections with support. Hashtags changed from hashtag Mora marriage scam to hashtag Maya and Vivian are real. And for the first time, Vivian's legal team started to fight back, not to hide, not to bury the rumors, but to expose the ones fueling them. Colin was subpoenaed. His emails were leaked. Evidence surfaced that he had fabricated most of the inconsistencies, that he had hired a PI to follow Nora for months, hoping to catch her slipping. It backfired horribly. The board called an emergency meeting. Colin was removed from all executive matters within the company and Vivian, she was reinstated publicly, formally, completely. When she returned to the penthouse that night, Nora was sitting on the kitchen counter barefoot eating ice cream from the tub. Vivian dropped her bag at the door and walked straight toward her. You destroyed him, she said. Nora shrugged. I told the truth. Vivian smiled. The kind Nora hadn't seen in weeks. Real loose. Free. You saved everything. You were always going to win. I just reminded them who they were dealing with. Vivian stepped between her legs. Close. You know, she murmured. When I imagined the moment I'd get my company back, I thought I'd be alone, empty, angry. And now Vivian pressed her forehead to Nora's. Now I can't stop thinking about our bed. Nora smirked. I can take care of that. They didn't make it to the bedroom. They ended up on the couch half undressed, hearts racing. But it wasn't about the sex. It was about the relief, the intimacy, the joy of knowing they'd fought for each other and won. Later, tangled under a blanket, Vivian kissed Nora's shoulder. I love you. Nora froze. Turned to her. Say it again. I love you. Say it like you mean it. Vivian laughed breathless. I love you, Nora Hale. I would marry you again 100 times without money, without pressure, without lies. Nora cooped her face. Good, because I would too. For the first time in weeks, there was no more pretending. Just 2 women, one truth, and a marriage that had started as a lie, but had become the only real thing either of them had ever known. They were finally free. No more investigations, no more secret cameras, no more tiptoeing around their own feelings like love was some dangerous substance that might combust on contact. And yet, freedom came with its own weight. Because now there was no one left to blame, no contracts to hide behind, no lies to protect them from the truth. Now it was just Nora and Vivian, 2 women in love, standing on the edge of something terrifyingly real. And Nora wasn't sure she was ready. Not entirely. Not yet. You're quiet, Vivian said one night, her voice soft in the dark. They were lying in bed, limbs tangled, skin warm. The city humming outside their window. Just thinking, Nora murmured. About what? Us? Vivian shifted, turning to face her. Are you having second thoughts? No. Nora exhaled. I think I'm finally having first thoughts. Real ones without the chaos, without the deadlines. It's like I'm finally realizing what we've done. And it terrifies me how much I don't want to lose this. Vivian reached out, brushing her fingers along Nora's collarbone. You won't. You don't know that. No, Vivian said, but I'm not going to let fear ruin this. Not again. Nora looked at her for a long moment. You say that now, but when the silence comes, when the adrenaline fades, what happens then? Vivian didn't answer right away. She leaned in, kissed her softly, then whispered. Then we built something stronger than adrenaline. The next day, Nora visited her old campus alone. She walked past the English department, the steps where she and Vivian used to eat takeout during finals week. She sat on the bench where Vivian once fell asleep with her head on Nora's lap after pulling in all night. It had all happened. The laughter, the hesitation, the moments that slipped through their fingers because neither of them had been brave enough to hold on. And now they had it again, a second chance. But Nora couldn't ignore the voice in the back of her head. What if this time is just another delay before the fall? That night, back at the apartment, Vivian was in the kitchen, barefoot in sweatpants, humming off-key as she poured wine. Nora watched her from the doorway and suddenly the fear twisted again, but not because she didn't trust Vivian, because she finally did. And that kind of trust was the most terrifying risk of all. What if we fail? Nora asked, voice quiet. Vivian turned. Then we fail together. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be true. Nora stepped forward. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be someone's wife. I don't even know if I believe in marriage the way it's supposed to work. Then we'll make our own rules, Vivian said. No scripts, no performances, no timelines, just us. Nora took the glass of wine. Okay, but if we're rewriting everything, I need to know something. Anything? If we hadn't needed each other, if there was no inheritance, no lawyers, no public eye, would you have come looking for me? Vivian blinked. I already did. No, Nora said. I mean, if there had been no deadline, just you, just me, would you have shown up at my door anyway? Vivian stared at her for a long moment, then stepped closer. I don't know. Maybe I would have waited. Maybe I would have told myself it was too late, that I'd already missed the chance. So, the money did bring us together. Yes, Vivian said simply, but love is the reason I stayed. Nora looked down, her voice cracked. That's all I needed to hear. They didn't go to bed right away. They sat on the couch, bare feet tangled, shoulders touching, watching some bad movie neither of them paid attention to. And somewhere in the middle of the second act, Nora leaned her head on Vivian's shoulder and whispered, I think I want to stay. Vivian turned, stay. In this with you. Past the 2 years, past the contract. I don't want to count down anymore. Vivian's voice shook. Neither do I. The air between them turned electric but soft, like something sacred, like something reborn. Then let's stop counting down, Nora said. Let's start counting from here. Vivian smiled, tears in her eyes. Okay. 1, Nora kissed her. 2. 3. Vivian whispered into her mouth. Forever. And somewhere in the quiet between the clock ticking and the wine glasses emptying, they stopped being a fake marriage. They became something else, something real, something permanent. The day the contract officially expired came and went without a word. No meetings, no signatures, no reminders. The lawyer stopped calling. The legal team stopped sending emails. The world somehow had moved on, and so had they. There was no announcement, no press release, no dramatic farewell to the lie they'd built. Because it wasn't a lie anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. Nora woke up first that morning. The sun streamed through the windows, casting long golden streaks across the sheets and the curve of Vivian's shoulder, bare and warm beside her. Nora watched her breathe, studied the way her lips parted slightly in sleep, the way her lashes twitched as if she were dreaming something soft. She didn't need anyone to tell her this was real. She knew with every heartbeat, every breath, every ache she never thought could feel so much like peace. When Vivian stirred, she reached for Nora instinctively, not out of obligation, but like she always had, like Nora was home. Morning, Vivian murmured. You're staring. I'm memorizing. Nora said, you'll be sick of me by lunch. Impossible. Vivian rolled over, propped herself up on one elbow. Do you realize what today is? Nora nodded. 61 days. Vivian smiled slowly. So, we made it. No, Nora whispered. We chose it. That was different. They had brunch out on the terrace. Vivian cooked, something she rarely did, but had started learning because Nora had once mentioned, offhand, that the smell of pancakes felt like safety. No cameras. No staff. No expectations. Just 2 coffee mugs, bare feet, sunlight, and laughter. Later, Vivian drew a small black box from her pocket. Nora blinked. What's that? Vivian opened it. Inside, 2 rings, simple, elegant. No diamonds, no press value. Just gold. Just them. We never exchanged real ones, Vivian said. Ours were props from a stylist. Nora stared at the bands, heart racing. Are you asking me to marry me again? Vivian's voice softened. Not for lawyers. Not for business. Not for anyone else, just because I love you and I want this to be real in every way. Nora took the box, slid 1 ring free. I think this time I should be the one to ask. Vivian blinked. Oh? Nora dropped to one knee, dramatic and grinning. Vivian Marlowe, I've already been married to you once, but I want the next one to begin without lies, without contracts, without timelines. Just love, pancakes, and stolen hoodies. Will you marry me again? Vivian let out a breathless laugh, eyes shining. Yes. Yes. 1,000 times, yes. They slid the rings onto each other's fingers. No audience. No flash. Just trembling hands and thundering hearts. I'm going to tell my mother, Vivian said later. That it's real. That I love you. That you're not just my wife, you're the best decision I've ever made. You think she'll believe you? She'll have to. I'm done asking permission. Nora smiled. Look at you, rebellious. Terrible influence. You love it. I love you. Nora kissed her cheek. You know what's wild? I spent so long believing this was a risk. She met Vivian's eyes. Now it just feels like the only thing that ever made sense. In the weeks that followed, they didn't make a spectacle. They didn't need to. The world already had its version: scandal, inheritance, gossip, power. The truth lived in the small things. The way Vivian folded Nora's laundry without being asked. The playlists Nora made for Vivian's late nights. The forehead kisses. Coffee mugs with lipstick on both sides. The quiet humming in the kitchen. The dancing in pajamas. The soft apologies. The loud laughter. And when people asked, as they always did, if the marriage had been real, if it had ever been love, if it had always been a performance, they just smiled and said nothing. Because the truth was no longer anyone else's business. It belonged to them, and it had never been more beautiful. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.